Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 146 of Into the Outer Realms. I am your interstellar host. Address the Set special tonight. We got Bob Dylan here. We got Buddha. We got Ganesh in the back. You know, breaking through obstacles, taking down paths. I'm very excited about our guest tonight, author of The Karma Factor. It's so rare that I get to talk to someone where we have so many overlaps, musicians, poets. Activists, screenwriters, novelists. We had a terrific conversation in the green room. I'm really excited for you to meet him if you don't know his work. Wonderfully articulate, and this book is wonderful. I'm going to roll the intro when I come back. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about it, read the bio, kind of set it up for you. But if you are fans of like Chris and John Nolan stuff and Steve Moffat stuff, the Netflix series, Russian Doll, Archive 81, if you watch the German language Dark, 1899, people are hungry for the philosophical, the spiritual, the heavy stuff, the real questions, life, death, life, death, rebirth, samsara, the whole bit. But they don't want to give up, the action that they love. So what Thomas has done in this book, The Karma Factor, is it's a crime procedural. If he was in with studio executives pitching, it's crime procedural meets heavy spirituality. Wonderful stuff. As you can tell, I'm very, very into it. If you haven't read my book review, you can go to New Mystics Reviews, read the book review. You can also go to Thomas's website, I just found out, and read it. So we're going to have them share that. So everybody, welcome. I'm so glad you're here with us tonight. This is going to be light and love and keeping our vibrations high. Welcome to the show. What is happening here? Where is my opening is malfunction.
There exists a realm beyond our wildest dreams, a realm beyond reality that the gatekeepers and guardians have always told us consists of nothing but tricks of the eye, weather balloons, swamp gas, sand cranes, fairy tale myths of monsters, crackpot conspiracy theories, and desperate cries for attention.
We know this realm exists, and it's just beyond the horizon. The preset path, the well-worn walkways where the cynics want us to stay.
Instead, give this a listen. Put on your headphones, adjust your volume, close your eyes, and fasten your mental seatbelts, because the twilight-tinged turnoff from reality's alluring highway is looming just ahead.
We're about to leave the plane of the easily explained, the couldn't possibly be's, and the no way I just saw what I saw's, for the spaces and places where everything is possible, and if you stay long enough, even probable. We're about to take a journey into the outer realms.
All right, everybody's ready to go in the chat room. I'm going to read the bio and bring Thomas on because I know that the next hour and 10 minutes is going to go by in a blink of an eye. So let's get started. Raised in Connecticut, Thomas Lane is a multi-dimensional creative drawn to spaces where art, spirit, and social justice intersect. Yes. He is the author of The Artist's Manifesto, a tribute to the power of the arts and its value to a society that has forgotten the precious nature of life. In addition to creating a collection of poetry, screenplays, and paintings, he recently recorded a CD of his songs entitled Hotel Earth under the stage name Tracker. I was listening to some tracks off that CD tonight before the show, and he's going to tell you about it. You got to go out and get it. Politically active since his teens, Thomas subsequently created the Helen Hudson Foundation, a nonprofit focused on social issues, including homelessness, racism, and the environment. He currently lives with his wife in the great state of Rhode Island. Thomas, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. What a great intro thing you did there. That was fabulous.
Thank you. Thank you. So I am really, this is a super treat for me. I don't do as many shows with storytellers. Well, we're all storytellers in a way, but you know what I mean. I mean you got the meat and the bone and the flesh and the blood and all the good stuff in the Karma Factor. So let's just jump right in. First of all, look at you, look at guys. It's this oversized hardcover book. I mean, nice big print, which people are always worried about that. Beautiful cream colored paper. I always do my books in cream colored paper, Tommy. I just think it's beautiful and it so vibes. So what inspired this book?
Great question. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome.
Inspiration, it has many different facets, and it's really hard for me to go, okay, it was this particular incident or that book or whatever. So it was a collage of things that hit me. Part of it, well, to go back, I was raised with a family, wonderful, grateful, intelligent, all PhDs. I had 3 PhDs, and then there was me, who specialized in getting caught in mischief and all kinds of very young, boyish things. But it was also just difficult for me. And especially, I went through quite a hard time when I was quite young. And it was relieved, the pressure was relieved initially by my 4th grade teacher reading The Hobbit.
Yes.
The Hobbit. Now, I had read comic books and I wasn't up to major literature, but here was in steps this little schnooky guy with great courage and smarts, and he outwits the big Goliaths that are in the story. And he's still a cool, humble guy. And all of a sudden, this other realm opened up for me, the possibility that there were alternative realities. And so this then, many, many aspects came in. There was an older guy who I got to know who was doing sensory deprivation on himself. This is decades ago. Yes. This is way ahead of the curve. And he was saying how he would live in he'd stay in a darkened room, eat unsalted nuts for 6 weeks. And then he'd step outside and all of a sudden, like, the grass was green, 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 and shouting and alive, and the music of the leaves and the trees and the whole thing. And I began to realize, and I didn't back then, but I began putting the pieces together, that really it was not what you see, but how you see it, and that we had the possibility of altering a state of mind through work, through drugs, through whatever, but through work. And this got me interested in spirituality. And then spirituality got me into all kinds of interesting and bizarre places. And I did a lot of different things, a lot of different ones. And then at the same time, I was very much a guy. I was a sports guy. I like girls and sports and adventures. And so I had these 2 roads, quite spiritual. It was Yogananda and these Eastern thought characters that were opening me up to things like past lives. And then there was this other stream, which was just good old, like an adventure story, like noir movies, 1940s and all that stuff. And so at one point, I ran into the Akashic Records. I don't know how much I need to go into that.
Yeah, let's touch on it.
Okay.
I think it's as familiar, but what really turned you on about that?
Well, it was just the sense, that there was this. I mean, I've come to learn so much more than when I first ran into it, about it being just a kind of a conscience, an etheric conscience that is a sort of a database of past lives. All the information about your previous incarnations are there, in addition to wisdoms and thoughts and ideas. And there are people that do readings that are phenomenally potent. And I'm just beginning to explore it. By the way, my book is fiction. I don't pretend to be an expert on any of these things, but they are things that I've encountered as I went through my changes growing up. Um, so the idea of a database of past lives and my interest and my fondness for just good old regular, well done mystery whodunit storylines. And then I began putting this thing together. As you say, it's cops and robbers. The karma factor is as a policeman and sort of an ordinary blue collar cop without giving away the endings. And he has to, all of a sudden, he has an awareness of a previous lifetime of doing something completely different. And he has to like bring these two factors together. And there's a lot of layers going on.
Yeah.
But I use it and not to lessen the power of the true Akashic records, but in making it into a novel, I had to make it plausible and an everyday guy's story. At the same time, cops and robbers backlit by this amazing light that was sort of shines through the seams of the book as I was trying to tell a story, but also bring in this other factor, which was actually much bigger and much more present than any of the characters realized until kind of as it gets into the end. Anyway, so how's that?
That's awesome. And I too, I was, oh man, I was in middle school and I got, from Scholastic, you have the fold out color and, oh, mom and dad, can you please, spend $5-6 on this book for me? And it was The Hobbit. It's on the shelf behind me, my original copy.
Oh,
no, and that's, and I've written a fantasy novel, but that clicks so well. What I love about Detective James Early, and like I say in the review, back in the day, if this was made in the 80s or maybe even early 90s, Bruce Willis, Mickey Rourke, he's that kind of guy. Like, we know him. And then you have I want to talk about the women in the story a little bit later, but you have the stripper with the heart. James has this wonderful relationship with his mother, which is so refreshing and very cool and right on.
I'm so glad you got that. That was my grandma. Her name was Ida, and she was that character.
I knew somehow instinctually, I knew that was based on a real person. And it really I'm very careful on this show. We're going to celebrate our 3-year anniversary in 2 weeks. We've done 140 something shows, so hours and hours. We don't use the term expert, and especially not in these realms, not in the outer realms. That's a danger. That smacks of ego. We're all learning, right? And the more experiential it is, but as someone who has studied this stuff for 30 some odd years, it all rang so true. I mean, even when you were down in the library in the basement, the stuff that people are going to have to find out about by reading this book. But anyway, I want to point out it's dedicated to those who have outgrown denial. I think that's wonderful. And are rising up with courage and kindness to face a world in crisis. Boy, is it. And every time I start talking about the crisis, I quickly go, just keep telling your stories. Have people like Thomas Lane come and share with their audience their stories. That was so wonderful and moving. I know you have a foundation, you're a social justice activist. At what point, so you have the James Early and you have the monk, right, and they live inside of you. And I went through that same, reading Jung and the Shadow, the Doppelganger, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Where did you really kind of hook in and go, oh, this activism, I need to do this. I need to get involved.
Well, I just wrote something about it, about going to the March on Washington when I was very young, and it's a bizarre, wonderful story. I won't go there now, but
you know what, though, you can.
Okay.
If you want to, I mean,
well, between you and me, we could just go all night trading stories. I know,
yeah, but that's okay. We'll map this out. We'll be okay.
Well, it was when I was very young and very open to. I was already involved in the whole racism thing. Was just terrifying for me, and I didn't understand it when I was growing up. My family's very political and activist oriented, And when I saw these horrors on TV and newspaper, I went, what is the matter with these people? It's like, look, I have a blue shirt on. He has a red shirt on. We take the shirts, swap the shirts. Hey, we're people. It didn't go over that well. I never went down south and tried to convert folks that way.
Right.
But when I was younger, um, there was the call for the March on Washington, and somehow all this energy was coming through, and it was not specific. It was do something. And it's very much similar to what's going on now, except now it's on steroids, about rising up above one's comfort zone, because of something earnest, something sincere, organic, authentic, not for show or points on the scoreboard. And so I went down there without my family and ended up just falling in love with the movement. And when I was writing about it, I said it was a march that I had been part of ever since the day I took my first steps. And it was like, that's to answer your question. It was like I came in this lifetime with that as an ambition, as a cause, as do something. And that was what got me out of a sort of a reclusive life that I have been living for many years as an artist, to come out and meet wonderful people like you, and to be part of this ongoing growing. It's a time of terrible big lies, as we know, but it's also a time for wonderful big truths. They're both going on, and it's my pleasure to have this book represent a viewpoint that I hope will be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in my travels on the byways and highways, and just this past summer, I was touring as Allen Ginsberg and trying to do him justice with a big old beard and trying to get his accent
Really?
and his poetry right. Yeah.
Oh,
I've met so many people who were at that march on Washington. It's a special kind of person. Like, I've kind of come, I'll be speaking to them, and after a while, I'll go, "Hey, were you at any of the marches, during that time?" Because I've written and staged like interactive and presentational theater pieces from that time. I missed it. I was born in '68.
Hmm.
And my dad was in Vietnam, and he was very suspicious of all that stuff. Even when I got my earring when I was 21, he was like, "Oh my gosh, what the heck?" I was like, "Dad, just relax. I think it looks kind of cool." He's like, "Well, make it mean something." Because to
Yeah.
him, it meant something else. So in my house, immigrants from Sicily, and they were, "No, we're Americans, and it means something." And, but to meet these wonderful people, so I'm not surprised at all. So let's put it right out there now. As I was reading it, and being a screenwriter, and having written treatments and all, it has a lot of air, which is wonderful. It snaps along, it moves back and forth in time. But when you open it up, um, did you write it visually? Like, did you see it as a screenplay? Did you cast the characters? Because it doesn't look like your typical dense novel, which is wonderful. It's a compliment. So I'm curious about that.
Okay, well, enter the subject of intuition then, because I don't hold data that well. I mean, I process it, but then it kind of floats away. But what I hang on to is the spirit of the words, the gist of the words. And so as a writer, I've just done zillions of hours at the computer, finding my way. The voice was already there, and I had to just get out of the way and let the muses speak to me. So there was obviously some. I mean, I had read screenplays and I took a course online and this and that, so I had some information. But when there was such an interest in this book right from the get-go, I mean, we had major people at the table. Bang! Right as soon as I had written a novella, which was a 72-page kind of comical treatment of this.
Wow.
As I mentioned to you before, we sat down with Roseanne Barr, who said, "This is a TV show." Boom, off we go. Didn't fly. It was the book was without any kind of um, it should without the should be's. It wasn't going to be. It was just what it was. It was just. It wasn't thinking. I wasn't trying to make it a movie. I was trying to make it just a really good piece of art. And everything else that was there was kind of coming up through me. I mean, I've seen a lot of movies. I've read a lot of books. I've done a lot of study, a lot of meditation, all that. And this was just how it came out of me in the genre of what it was without a lot of planning. You know what I'm saying?
So you didn't do a ton of outline character development at all. Wow, I love it. I love it.
No, I had written other books where I would, start writing it. I mean, you have to outline it at a certain point, but you don't outline it right away. Otherwise, you cut your flow. You let it speak. You let it figure itself out. You let it go. And then if you can't get to the ending, if you can't figure out where it's going, then you need to start putting in some structure. That's my process. But I don't do it too soon. I stay away from it as long as I can.
Yeah.
You
No,
know
that's
what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it worked. Now I am a serial plotter. I'm a story analyst, and
Are you?
I love the hero's journey, and I love the 3-act structure, and I love
Yeah,
Blake Edwards,
yeah,
save the cat and all that kind of stuff. I love it, but it just helps me because my brain works so fast.
yeah.
And because, like, looking around my room, you could kind of see, like, my room is a 3D projection of all the stuff in my brain. I'm super curious. So it forces me to get otherwise everything I wrote would be thousands of pages, and then
Yeah.
I would have to chip away. And that's so hard because you fall in love with your stuff. But this is about you. So I mentioned James Early. He's gritty, but he's realistic. And I love it because in so many especially paranormal stories, horror, things like that, satanic sort of tales. And there's the priest that's in crisis. And sometimes guys like Arnold Schwarzenegger or other guys have played the cop who's in crisis and they have some kind of supernatural experience. But Early is in crisis. He's in the weeds, as we say early on. And I love that because I was immediately sympathetic to him.
Yeah.
And I felt like, nature abhors a vacuum is one thing, and I'm not giving anything away in the story, but he's so ready to release, right? That in the hero's journey, like you say, no, no, no to the call of adventure, and sometimes that takes up a lot of Act One. He's ready. He's primed. Was he always that way, or did you?
Yeah. Well, there is a scene with the mother, if you remember, with Ida, where he says he suddenly had this experience of a previous lifetime, and he goes to his mother and he says, "Was I different as a child? Did I, what was going on?" And she said, "Oh my God, you talk about what was actually a monastery." He said these castles, and you would hold on to my finger so tight and tell me about the snow-drenched mountains. And so there was that. And then, but when the story opens, we have that first letter in the beginning, which is the big picture. Do you remember that?
Yeah, oh yeah.
From Paulton, so he is in crisis because he's hearing the call. He doesn't know what it is. He's getting, this is not random kind of stuff that's coming in. This is actual memories. And he wants to take himself out. He cannot stand this any longer. And this is when the bullets that he leans into get hijacked. And they end up in a mountaintop in Arizona. And then he goes, why, I've been saved. But what am I supposed to do with it? What am I? And then that is the, what is it in the McKay pivotal incident?
Oh, the inciting incident.
Inciting incident. Thank
Yeah.
you. That's the inciting incident that launches him on this quest. And there's, there are other forces at play that he finds out about, but that's where he is at the very beginning.
Yeah, and just brilliant. I love it. And then the different characters that constellate around him. But now we've teased the Akashic record, we've teased reincarnation, with the understanding that neither of us are experts. What is your position on reincarnation to start?
It's a great question, and it's loaded with skepticism because the form wins out over formless like 90% of the time in this culture and in general. For me, there was experiences that I had that starting at around 18, 19, that was like, wait, where am I? I was in a church. I was in a place where I was a singer, um, doing a cafe gig. And it was one of those old Gothic churches in Chicago. And suddenly I had this sort of, things get a little blurry. And then the sense that I've been to something like this before. And I've had it with people. It's hard to describe. But for me, it's a little, I get off the sort of hypnotic spell of this world as we normally see it. And like you, look for other realms, or allow other realms to infiltrate through the porous nature of that reality, and have experiences that are inexplicable, really, but are also can explain behavior for me. Um, and I also think, it gets a bad name because there's terrible people that get away with things.
Mhm.
Terrible people that get away with things. We have someone sitting in the White, or an ex-president who is in that category. Maybe things will catch up to him, maybe not. But it kind of downplays the justice factor, that bad people who do bad deeds will be punished. And so, and to that, I have come to terms with, this is a snapshot in a long film, and you can't make a judgment call. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
A
yeah.
judgment call on this one, very short period that we have. The other thing is that it is so short. It doesn't. You barely get your shoes on,
Right.
and let alone lace up the laces. And so I figure that, at least it works for me. That's all I can say. That
Yeah.
we have been here before. There are people that I've run into that all of a sudden click in a certain kind of way, and I'm comfortable with that. But I have plenty of uncertainties, that can cloud it.
Yeah. Yeah, really, as creatives, we can fill in pieces, we can concoct story, we have vivid imagination. So I know what you mean. But this idea of the people that you need all coming together, that's very central to this book.
Yes.
As they change, and I mentioned her, Desda, the stripper with a heart. She's doing her thing, and she has her reasons for doing her thing, and there's sound reasons, and it kind of takes morality out of it, which I absolutely loved.
Yep.
And but she goes, this doesn't work anymore.
Right.
There's
Right.
something off here. So she's answering the call of adventure. The people are constellating around. Meanwhile, the bad guys, the big bads, and we're going to talk about them in a bit because they're fascinating. They're wonderful. They're doing their thing. You were alluding to karma, and of course, it's right there in the karma's way thornier for me than.
Yeah.
How do you define karma, and how most importantly, Thomas, because this is where I'm come to. How
Right.
does karma work in your life? How does it function for you?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'd really like to hear whatever you want to say about it with your experience. It's really, really tricky stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Tricky.
Right.
I think for me, and for me maybe only, is that it has to be based on the firm belief that we're all God's children, so to speak, and that we are basically good. We basically, when you strip it all down, even the serial killers of the universe, you get rid of all the baggage and all the shit they've done. Pardon my French. All
You're
the
good.
stuff. Okay, good and bad. There's something that is invisible and beautiful and nameless. It's a chunk of mystery that somehow has your waveform, and but it is blessed with beautiful sensibilities and compassion and beyond those kinds of words. So if that's good, and then you transgress against that, I mean, is there a force out there? Is the police that are going, bang, you're bad. Oh, you're bad, you're going to be punished. No, I don't see it that way. I see it as self to self kind of. And whatever collaborative forces are out there that I don't understand or don't know about. But that is your compass. And so if I go out and I hit a child, say, I am going to feel like that's, on one level, even if I'm not quite aware of it, I'm going to feel badly about it. I'm going to feel that was a mistake to my basic nature, and I will want to correct that. And the low-hanging fruit of correction is to punish. You can go up from there and say, dude, have a look at that, which would be better, and which is what James Early and the Karma Keepers are all about, is other than jail and punish for bad thing, is find out the source. Where did that come from? What lifetime is he replaying the record over and over and over again that will make him continue to do this stuff till he takes the record needle off the record and starts again? And so I don't know. Does that
That resonates for me. I'd love to hear in the chat room. You guys are hooked in and active tonight. So let us know what you think about that. For me, it functions best when it's personal. And I've always, I know it's a John Lennon song, but for me, it's instant karma.
Yeah.
If abundance and goodness is coming into my life and I'm taking it for granted or not appreciating or the gratitude, something is going to remind me. Someone's going to pull me in and it's going to course correct me. I much prefer that. This whole cosmic like policeman, like you were saying, I don't know that we need that. And as storytellers, let's talk about the villains here now. So let's talk about the white man, and then let's talk about in the beginning, I guess what you would call the big bad. He's really the driver. He's the guy with the vendetta. He's called Quill, which is a little unsettling to me because my Scottish pirate that I do in my lectures and my tours of my theater is also named Quill. So I was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. That's kind of cool. It's clear that even though we're smart as the audience, we go, okay, we can't root for this guy because he's crossing lines. He's hurting people. He's a sociopath, sort of. Although that's so reductive. I believe in reading your book that you're wise enough to know, as writers, we don't make the judgments. We just put them in the circumstances and we let them behave organically as characters behave. And the writers in the audience, I hope that resonates with you. Was that it? Because it's not like evil, one-dimensional, this guy. There were places at the end of the second act where I felt for him.
Oh,
and
wow.
I went, if this dude can get a little help, maybe he can turn from the inevitable.
Right.
And does he, folks? You're going to have to read The Karmic Factor and find out. But what was your process with the bad guys, with the big bads, with the white man and Quill? And how do you differentiate them? Because they're very different.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up, and B, the process. It had to be someone that was enacting something that started a long time ago.
Yeah.
That was a structural thing with him. And then the fact that he wasn't a serial killer. He was a man with a private war. And that war was America and Americans, iconic Americans. I don't want to give too much.
No, don't. Yeah. No, you're good. No, we got to give a little context.
Okay.
Though. Yeah.
Okay. So, and America has, speaking of karma, has a few debts on a few areas. But so I wanted to make him sexy, hard, smart, really trying to figure this thing out on where best and how best and strategic he can be. and but he was really not the bad guy. The bad guy is Whiteman.
All right.
Right. He
Okay. All
was the
right.
vehicle. I mean, not in the story you wouldn't know it, but the one that is really masterminding a lot of these nasty folks is that character. And so, and his methodology of fortune telling was incredibly torturous for him. He almost paid the price for all his nastiness just in reading the tea leaves, so to speak. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
I do. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So so he was at the top, and he's kind of poetic in a very dark way, the way he spoke, his language, his orientation, very eloquent in his nastiness, and was a real snob also. He didn't like dealing with this guy because he was so crude, but he was being paid a fortune. So anyway, those were the 2 guys that were the initial if this book lives to go a sequel and another one, which was a little bit in the plan, or
Mhm.
then this book I had to get the backstory set up, the whole um, genesis of it, and then tell a story and open it up for the next thing. We'll see who the next bad guys are. I don't know right now.
Right
It'll
on.
come to me, but it'll come through, just being alive and out there and being aware of where I find true distasteful energy and see if I can get characters that work with that.
Yeah. That's cool. So tap into that vibe and then it'll call forth
Yeah,
who you need. That's terrific. Guys, if you're fans of Dan Brown, the white man is a very Dan Brown-esque character, and I say that with a lot of respect. I love Dan Brown.
yeah,
But he is that sort of global, international, cosmic sort of bad guy, and not at all a cartoon. Absolutely frightening. Absolutely frightening. And even when the antagonist who's more on our plane, right? So I'm talking about the difference between the Emperor and Darth Vader in Star Wars is
right,
really the difference between the white man and Darth Vader. Darth Vader, we can get a little, and he's more human. He has the
yeah.
human story. The Emperor is just like Gollum. He's so evilly, you know.
It is. And
Yeah.
and just the bad guy, Malcolm, the Quill guy.
Mhm.
We do we do uh, we do find out much more about him that makes him much more uh, empathetic
Yeah.
about who he is and why he is that way, and that's really all you can do is try to understand.
Well, you did it very well because especially in a story with reincarnation and karma and akashic record and cycles, none of the heroes are clean.
Right.
They all have something in their past where they went, if I had gone left instead of right, if I had found a little more courage, if I had been a little less selfish. And that's, those of us who are really in the game and just trying to keep our candle lit and get through life, halfway decent, not let life jade us, not let it, you and I are talking to Hollywood guys all the time. I'm talking to
Yeah.
Broadway guys, this and that. It's a double-edged sword because you have to go, I'm a storyteller. That
Right.
allows me to reach bigger audiences. It allows me to do things for my family because they're, more. But the more you climb that, right? Shakespeare, a mighty blast to shake them, and when they fall big. We don't want to fall big.
Mm.
But Early is sensitive to that, and he's really kind of trying to so it's beautiful to me. It's really,
Thank
really beautiful.
thank
Let's
you.
talk about Paulden the monk because he's the counter actor. So, folks, we always have a character continuum. James Early is right smack dab in the center of that. We identify with him, we empathize with him. He's the guy we take the journey with. He's the Luke Skywalker. He's the Frodo. He's that's the deal on that. But then there's Paulden the monk, who's sort of the Yoda sort of character, and he says the woeful condition of our world is the direct result of the lack of vision, lack of self knowledge. Can you explain that to the audience from your perspective?
Yeah, this is just what I've come to,
Yeah.
which is that um, that the time spent with in following curiosity about self, because your primary and primal responsibility is me, is me and my actions.
Right.
And I don't like when I mess up and I hurt people's feelings, or if I get angry, it betrays what I feel is sacred in me. And so it's important to for me to examine areas where I have not performed well or not behaved well, in terms of not as punishment again, but again as what's going on here? Why did I say that? Or what, in the little thing, and the bigger thing is, why did I take that train left as opposed to the train right? So that's the homework we're all saddled with, the basic homework, I feel. And those that go on that journey and then want their behavior to reflect their values instead of cultural values that might get you farther ahead financially or whatever. Not to say making money is in any way wrong or bad, God knows.
Right.
But, keeping that the North Star as one's own authenticity, we will have a better world the more we all do that. And I feel this is a real call to action and call to understanding in whatever sphere we're working on. At least I'm taking that on, and that Paulin was just remarking that, as a people we lack leadership in a lot of places, and the leadership comes from all of us, or me. I'll speak of me, being a better soul, and so I can encourage people with that kind of skills to lead, to be the right people and people that are mature, and that are really basing their lives on doing the right thing across all phases of life. I think that's, I haven't talked to Paulden recently, but
Okay.
I think I tried to do the best I could with that, but it has to
Yeah.
do with that. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to you've mentioned our lack of leadership, and there is a character in the book but I want to hold it for a second because
Oh
she really is epitome of that, and I loved it. At first I went, nah, it'll never happen, but I was like, shame on you. So is that course correction. But do you believe that we have angels, higher guides, spirit
Wow.
guides? What do you think about that?
I'm open to it. I really am. I mean, because like you do, the outer realms um, are not really outer realms. They're just part of. I think,
Yeah.
and if you're open to experience things and curious about things, and not, encased in fixed ideas and stuff, that you'll run into phenomena. You just will. And it's inexplicable. And you can label it angel, you can label it, that was my brother who's passed and is outside. And, I've had experiences there again also. It never relieves me of my own personal responsibility to try to create my own destiny and my own fate, but I don't feel alone in this regard. I really don't, and that's about all I can say.
Yeah, I think that's all we can say. So let's talk about this. There's the people who the bad guy is after and is targeting, and one of these people is a woman named Ellen Burwell. Now, Ellen was a senator. She abruptly resigned from the cesspool of Congress. If only, right? If only we had an Ellen, it would be wonderful. And she's slowly coming back. She took a couple years off, but she's writing and she's lecturing and she's reading and thinking and formulating. She comes back as an independent, and she sort of is our hope on. So we have hope on all these different levels. We have Paulden the Mulk who's helping us. I want to talk about Tracker, and that's going to get us into music.
Ah,
But
yeah.
do you have an actual inspiration for or an amalgamation of women who are Ellen, or is she a pure fabrication?
She is aspects of all. She's just a glorious human being.
Yeah, I agree.
And she is selfless. She has the right values. I do feel, as in many cases, that we need more yin, and it is a time for parity. God knows it's way overdue, and I'm so pleased that there are women that are getting in positions of power right now, and that there is this change going on, the Me Too thing, and there's injuries along the way, but it's a movement that I completely support, and I feel that we would all be better with a more balanced and more parity between the sexes. So this was just you try, as a writer, you just try to be the character and see what takes place and what comes out of their mouth. And she wrote that, letter when her husband got injured, about, folks, just because somebody crazy man tried to shoot my husband doesn't mean we throw more locks on the door, doesn't mean we get our guns out and polish them. It means that we just be aware, careful, but keep your life going. Don't live less, live more.
And that is the value of story, where we can look at these people. She has Elizabeth Warren moments, she has Tulsi Gabbard moments, she has,
Yeah.
you could go down the list, and none of them seem to have the entire package, because the ego and the enticements and that complicated world is there. And it was beautiful. I don't want to say you were smart enough. I will say you were wise enough as a storyteller to go, the way to make her believable is she's got to have the conviction to go, I'm out. I am walking away from this.
Right.
And I am going to come back into it on my own terms. And the thing is, she was really turning people on. Like in the book, like there's this growing, and you're going, okay, so there's the cosmic and there's the spiritual, there's the praying, but then there's just getting up in the morning and preaching it and living it. And so I love Ellen. And ladies, you're going to love Ellen. She's just another reason to read this book. So another character, because we're getting to the point now where I want to shift gears a little, because you do so much, which I love. Tell us about Tracker. He's the quirkiest character in the book. So start with that, and then take Tracker into your own life as a musician.
Well, Tracker, I'm also a musician, singer-songwriter. Tracker became my stage name. And I didn't know really why until later that name appealed to me so much. But, when we were in LA for years trying to get record deals, all that stuff. Didn't happen. Had a couple of close calls. All these stories are coming in, so I'm going, oh, hold on. So I decided, and then I did an album that was created and performed by Tracker in the studio and I was in the studio for about 3 years doing this thing. Wow. So I came out with a CD called Hotel Earth. That's a whole nother thing. But anyway, the Tracker thing is that, and this is a character his role is to be like a tracker, like I spell Tracker with 2 Ks, Trakker. He's out in front, and he's looking for signs about danger out there, about prospects. It's like the old trackers with Indians in those days. And that's what he does. And he does take down, he documents, he witnesses what's going on through poetry, through song, through painting, whatever. He's a creative. It looks a lot like me. But he's a wild guy, and he takes in all this information, sends it back. He reports back to anyone who might listen. And that was kind of what was going on with me. in that this is a fictitious character who also would step out of the book and into real life and then maybe back into the book. It was, I was having so much fun with him. And he speaks in a kind of cadence of riddles and poetry. And he's always talking in layers. And you have to sit and go, what did he say? And maybe he makes sense sometimes. And maybe he makes real sense sometimes. He gets right to the gut without saying it. You know, he says to Early, hey, you may be front page news now, but you got some back pages you got to deal with, dude. You know,
Yeah.
that kind of metaphorical stuff. So he was a delight to hang out with. And I thought about doing a separate book with his cadence, his thing. I think it would be too much of a good thing. So anyway, yeah, the songs from that is on Spotify and all these various other places. I have a zillion CDs. No one's buying CDs anymore.
Guys, you need to go out. This is the old I got Dylan in the background here tonight for a reason. He's not always there. Below him is the Beatles, but Dylan is really it's beautiful. King is a beautiful song. It's about Martin Luther King. Your voice is so perfect for that vibe, that time period. I was sharing it with Tanya tonight. Can't Breathe, I love.
Oh, thank you.
I love Can't Breathe. I'm very partial to that song about, tell the audience, King is about Martin Luther King. But what's Can't Breathe about?
That was the George Floyd incident.
Yeah, right on.
And Can't Breathe. And I was so distraught by that, and particularly oh God, the images of the knee on the neck.
Yes, with the hand in the pocket. That's what got me. The hand on the pocket, which made it so everyday. Not life and death, but right. I got my hand in my pocket like I'm waiting for a bus. Sorry to interrupt, but
no, that's exactly the power of it. It was so casual.
Yeah,
he's killing the person, and he's you know, talking about football scores or something. So I was really upset. So I you know, I'm a white boy, and yet I identified so heavily with the situation that I wrote this. It's more acoustic. It's less arranged than the album. The album was orchestral almost. I spent a lot of time, and I never had done any arrangements before. It's always been turn it over to producer. I was hands-on. I had a computer generated guitar synthesizer that I could play, you know, bells and whistles and mandolins and violins on my guitar. And so I put these raggedy things together and go in with someone who really knew music, and they could. Can't Breathe is very simple, very straight ahead, angry and hopeful at the same time. I tried.
Yeah, and succeeded. Guys, I'm going to put it up again, but you can go in the chat room after the show. Laura, thank you. Thank you to Lori. She put a link to the book. Thanks for you guys helping me, because I can't multitask very well and do honor to my guests. So all that stuff is in the chat room there. So you're a poet. That's where I started. Poetry, middle school. Painter, not a painter. I do, but so you're a musician, you're a writer, text writer, but a poet, which is kind of like screenwriting in a way, novels, kind of run the gamut of visual and sound. And do the projects tell you which hat to put on? Or do you say, today I'm going to paint and I'm going to sit here in front of this canvas until something fills the canvas? Or do you just go with the medium that the inspiration calls for?
Well, it's probably a little of both.
Okay.
I mean, I follow my heart, not my wallet. That's for sure.
Right.
But there'll be, you know, I'll get launched on a project like the Hotel Earth. That was nothing but that album for 3 years. And I'd come home and I'd work on arrangements and this and that, go in the studio and, you know, came out with something. I had decided no winces. There will be no winces. When I listen to this album, I will not wince once about, oh, I missed that note, or that guitar should have come in later. We went the distance. And that's kind of what I did with Karma also. It's like, I wouldn't release it unless I've been through it. And there was no, do you know what I mean by the page not moving on me?
Yeah.
The page would move and then I'd have to fix until I would go through it, the whole thing. not one. It didn't move. And so, and then I'm working on a song now because I'm not doing anything creative other than getting this book launched through the the gravitational pull. It's like a rocket hitting, being able to drop off certain things and then getting a little lighter. I'm still in the very early stages of it. By the way, a website I'd like to just
Yeah, please.
thomaslane.com. And
Easy enough.
it's easy enough. And I'd like to direct you towards my friend here, Joey, is featured in there because his review is in one of the blogs, and it's also one of his quotes is there. He did such a beautiful job. He really, really got the book, which is electrifying for anyone who has spent that much time writing something and creating something and having someone really get it. Really get it. It's just magical.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm pushing 300 reviews now, and that's my goal to say to the writer through not only to excite the reader, but to say to the writer, I get it. I appreciate the time and the effort, and because there's a lot of crap out there. People are rushing stuff to market. It's so easy. You can write it. You don't have to. I mean, I was part of this writers group, and we're getting in, but and they were like, "Oh, your audience will forgive typos. They just want the material out. If the characters are no,
No, no, no.
no, there's a certain right, like you were saying.
Yeah.
I read those pages exhaustively, and it's not until I can get through it without tripping
Yep.
and made no changes do I go,
Yeah.
okay, it goes. Yeah. So I appreciate that, and thank you. Please tell us about the Helen Hudson Foundation.
Interesting. My mother, who was a relentless activist, she's actually a big part of the write-up I did, March on Washington. I don't know if you saw that. She was there at the march.
Oh, nice.
I can say no more. We ran into each other. My mother was a writer and an activist in so many different areas. She went to all the marches. She recorded for the blind. She wrote letters to prisoners. She walked, did peace marches. I grew up in that. And so she, in the 1990s, she has departed with us, from us. In 1990s, she worked in the soup kitchens in New Haven, Connecticut. I was born and raised there. My dad taught at Yale, and she was just all over the place doing really cool stuff. And she was working at a soup kitchen, and she got interested in the clients, of course, in the guests, as they say. And so she would say, would you mind if I interviewed you? I'd just really like to get your story. And she was even less technical than I am, which is saying something. And she would set up that little microphone, little tape recorder in a broom closet, my God. And she would interview these folks, and she got a bunch of them, maybe 20 different stories, mothers, ex-soldiers, business guys, drug addicts, you got it. And she came out with a manuscript called Dinner at 6, Voices from the Soup Kitchen. And her publisher, she had published X number of books under the name of Helen Hudson, not Helen Lane. She published maybe 6 or 7. They're small academic kind of books, but well written. And her publisher didn't want to do this one. It wasn't sexy. It wasn't analytical. It was just, she stayed out of the way and let them tell their stories. And she did a beautiful job. And I was really moved by it when I read it. But then when I found out her publisher didn't want to do it, I kind of rallied the family, said, let's print it ourselves. Let's publish this book. And let's then, instead of making it a commercial venture, let's give the books away to soup kitchens so they could in turn sell the books and keep the money. And Mom didn't want a dime, and I didn't need anything. And so we did this. We did this for 20 years. And we published this book, and I would find out about a soup kitchen, and I'd, call them up, drive it over, and the back of my car loaded down with books and drop them off. And it did very, very well. We had like 6 printings, and we probably raised tens of thousands of dollars, hard to track, had maybe 100 different soup kitchens participating. And then when I moved to Providence, where I now live, I incorporated, I made it a foundation, got some money from my grandparents, and that's what we did. We just went and gave books away and sent them away, and got people who would read them, or got formerly homeless people, helped them go out and give their talks to schools and churches about their experience, and accompany that with books handed out. It was just a blessing for me. I got to do something for my mom. I got to do something for homeless people. And for me, it was just, it was just totally a positive experience. And so now mom's gone, and the books we're not working that so much. So we're basically giving money, making donations and grants to various organizations. And I've spread the mission statement out, so it includes the environment and, organizations that are helping hungry people and the racial situation. That's the Helen Hudson Foundation.org.
All right. All right. I can't, that speaks volumes. Folks, does that speak volumes about the man that we've spent the last hour with? I think it does. I have no way to follow that up other than to say, you get the last word. What do you most want the audience to know, to think about,
Wow. That's
time to share a little wisdom?
It's a little wisdom.
That's all that any of us can handle.
I got a little glass here full. Anyway, I wish everyone all the best. It's a terribly important inflection moment, and you hear it out there, but it really is. And I hope that it's a all hands on deck moment. But there are a million different decks. It doesn't mean you have to go out and protest. It doesn't mean you have to give money. It can mean whatever is important to you, that is, indicative of your best self and your most generous self. We got to pull this thing together.
Yeah. The stakes are high.
Stakes are high. Ridiculously high.
Yeah.
And I wish everyone all the best, on your journeys. And thanks for listening. And a big thanks to Joey for putting up with me for an hour and 15 minutes.
Oh, you got to be kidding. Namaste, my friend. No, I have a new friend, and that's the best part about this show. I'm making new friends, talented people, inspiring. The audience absolutely loved it. Thank you so much. We wish you the best. All right, folks. I'm gonna let you go. That was inspiring. It's a lot to think about. Let's be honest, that was more than a little cup of wisdom. That's right on. The stakes are high, and we have to be accountable for ourselves. And this way we can be accountable to each other. So people don't have to make us accountable. I think that's a problem. I think that's negative. I think that lowers our vibration. So it was beautifully said. Next week we have Mark Fiorentino. He's coming back for the third time. I'm really excited to tell you that I'm becoming friends and colleagues with so many of my guests. Mark came to me and said, I'd love to do a series on your show. So next Thursday, he's got a beautiful PowerPoint, talk about the Big Bang, intelligent design, where he thinks that maybe we're not being really told the truth of what's happening with the universe, expanding, contracting, what's going on, what black holes, all that kind of stuff. And then I guess to stay in the cosmic, we're going to celebrate our 3-year anniversary with Constance Victoria Briggs. She's very popular when she came on the first time. And hold on just a second here. The Moon's Galactic History. So this is a textual follow-up to her encyclopedia. So textual is the wrong word, but this is a book as opposed to an encyclopedia. She's going to help me celebrate our 3rd anniversary. She's coming back. We're going to talk about the Apollo missions and what the heck is going on the moon. Because did you all hear that the director of NASA was saying, well, China's got some moon missions planned this year, and they may claim the moon as their own territory. So I will tell you, people like Donald Kehoe, going back to the 1950s, were part of projects and studies of the United States saying, how can we claim interplanetary systems? How can we colonize and plant our flag, which is what we did, right? They planted the American flag on the moon. This is stunning stuff that a country, and then countries will fight over it, airspace, the moon. So tune in 2 weeks. Got a lot of good stuff coming up as we're trucking on towards 200 episodes. I am grateful for all of you for the conversation and the participation, staying with me these past 3 years. Everybody just have a great night, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.